Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming, Unboxing, and Vampire the Masquerade, and all else that I survey. You find me here in my study where I work with a very exciting proposition in front of me. I am here to unbox Vampire the Masquerade Heritage. But before I do, I'm going to wait for some people to roll in because I know this kind of thing is very exciting. Nightlord, hello. Nightlord, if you can hear me, because sometimes I know audio doesn't always come through as clearly as I would like, please send me a sign. Hello, Hercules, Cosme as well. I would just love, if you can hear me, just leave a comment to that effect. Otherwise, I will adjust audio and, well, audio is great. Wonderful. Hello. Everybody is saying hello right now. That is wonderful to see. So, hello and welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming. It's been a while. I always say that, don't I? Well, it always has been a while. And, before I get onto it, before I get onto the unboxing, the grand unveiling that people are looking forward to, I really do need to point something out to you, and that's a Kickstarter campaign. Of course I'm going to tell you about a Kickstarter campaign. That's how I order all of my games these days. Right now, Onyx Path have got a Kickstarter going for Scion Dragon and Scion Masks of the Mythos. It's two different games in the Scion universe, where, as the name implies, you play dragons and the children, descendants of dragons, and also where you play the descendants of the great old ones from Call of Cthulhu. And as I have made clear many a time, Call of Cthulhu is my favorite game to run. So being able to use the Call of Cthulhu mythos in a game of Scion is fantastic to me. And I've had a chance to read the manuscripts. The art for it is wonderful. I've put a link to that Kickstarter below. The Scion Dragon, Scion Mask of the Mythos, you can back one, you can back both. It's going really strong, and I thought it would be foolish of me to not mention it in this video before I started rambling on about vampire subjects. So people are asking, how am I? I'm doing very well, Matilda. Thank you very much for asking. Apple Black says, would you happen to have a TikTok? I would not happen to have a TikTok, no. That's something for young people, fledglings, neonates, not wizened elders like myself. When will Princess the Hopeful become World of Darkness canon? I don't think it ever will, honestly. Much like Highlander the Quickening probably won't either. Remember that? So, why are we here? We're here because I received my copy of Vampire the Masquerade Heritage. And here it is in a chunky box. Now, Vampire the Masquerade Heritage is a board game that I worked on. I co-wrote Vampire the Masquerade Heritage. I wrote the various historical events, the characters that appear in it, and so on. And there's also an expansion with my lovely face on it called The Gentleman's Pack, which is based around my, representation of Roger de Camden, the Cappadocian from various Vampire the Masquerade books and videos. So, hello, Keegan. See if you can make a meme out of this, you prick. So, let's get our knife out. This knife given to me a long time ago by YouTuber Tetsubo57. Hello, Tetsubo. James, if you're ever watching. I know you're still subscribed. I keep an eye on these things. We're going to... There you go, Scion of Hassus. You can't say that name more than, twice. So do be careful. That's the problem of being a descendant of Hasta. It makes writing birthday cards very difficult. So this is where I find out I've just scratched a great big hole in the lid of my Heritage copy. Now, a lot of people have already got their Heritage copies. My copy was somewhat delayed due to a political phenomenon known as Brexit, which prevented things from getting into this country. Both Brexit and COVID, in fact, neither of which helped a great deal. But I do have it now, and that's very exciting. Because, as I said, this is... I don't think this is the first board game I've worked on. I've actually worked on quite a few. I'll have to show you some of the ones I've got copies of. I don't own a copy of everything I worked on, which may seem like sacrilege, but there's only so much space in the world. I do need to sell, or at least give away, a lot of the books behind me to make room for new ones I've not read or played to death. Just trying to be careful to not... this is the thing, you should always be careful with knives. Never just wave them around like a lunatic. Especially don't run with them. I'm not about to get up and run with a knife. There's not enough room in the camera. Will there ever be an update for Los Angeles by Night for V5? I think you're watching it if you watch LA by Night on, what is it, on Critical Role? I don't know. I struggle to keep up with all of this. You know, I spend so much time writing these days. I very rarely engage in visual media. So we have some packaging. That's always a good starting. And that's also what we scored with our knife. We also have a content box. It's the deluxe version. So that means I should have a copy with my expansion in it. I get royalties for the sales of the expansion, would you believe? So, you know, definitely worth my while, people picking this up. There we go. Hope that wasn't too loud. So what have we got here? Loose, we've got some metal coins marked with different clan symbols. Yeah, I really should be more aware of this kind of thing. I used to find it struggle to watch actual plays. I participate in them in quite a lot. If you aren't subscribed to Red Moon Role Playing, I recommend it because I often appear on there. If you like my brand of running games, I've ran Vampire the Masquerade on there, Cult Divinity Lost, Scarred Lands, a whole bunch, Mummy the Curse. So yeah, we have some lovely coins here. I'm guessing that they will represent who you're playing. There you go. You can see that quite nicely. Oh, look at which one I drew. Lovely old clan, Tremere. Everyone's favourite clan. Except when I'm being accused of having nuked them for what happened with blood sorcery in V5. We also have, here we go, a lovely clan, the Sombra. That one's a little more clear. And what else should I show off to you? Good old-fashioned, do I hold it the right way up or the wrong way? I guess we do the Brouhaha way of holding it up. Red Moon Role Playing is on YouTube. They are also on everywhere you can get podcasts. Very much recommend them. I'm not a part of the Red Moon Role Playing crew. I'm just a regular GM there. And we also have an historic Zimishi symbol, in case you want to play one of those. Let's see how clear we can make it. It's on a webcam, mind you. There we go. So, well, that's not the highlight, is it? The highlight is the game itself, Vampire the Masquerade Heritage. Which clan was Dracula, says Night Lord? Well, Zimishi, to put it simply. Though, I would suggest that in your games you could make him from whichever clan you want. GN Rose Pasito, I probably mangled that. Speaking of B5 Blood Magic, any possibility of an Onyx Path Vampire the Masquerade 30th Anniversary Edition for folks that enjoyed the classic game? I don't think so. I imagine Paradox would probably say that could run into conflict with V5, given that that is the game that's currently being supported. So I doubt it. It isn't that we can't pitch different editions of games and different books for different games to Paradox. It's more what they, as the licensor, want to see released. So right now, for instance, we've been given the go-ahead to pitch more Mage the Ascension 20th Anniversary Edition. But we aren't going to be pitching more Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary because, of course, there's already a V5 out there. Okay, there we go. I've ripped off the cellophane flowers of yellow and green towering over your head. And now we take away the white to reveal the true darkness inside. I should be more careful with these things, shouldn't I? I do have the prototype version of Heritage as well, just down beside my desk, because when I was working on it, of course, I was looking at the prototype too. And that also comes in, I think, almost identical box. One thing I'm going to be interested in from pure vanity standpoint is whether my name appears anywhere in any conceivable credits page, because I don't think people are often credited in board games. But I guarantee to you, and you can check with the company that made this nice game, whether I worked on it, and they will tell you yes. What other questions do we have? Oh, shouldn't he be a Ventru being a count? Well, a lot of counts and words similar to count are in Clan Ventru, that's true. But they're also in many other clans, such as the Toreador, the Zemishi, or indeed any clan that would embrace a count. Casey M really enjoyed Cults of the Blood Gods and Let the Streets Run Red. Thank you very much, Casey. That's very kind. I very much enjoyed developing those books and writing on them too. Just throwing these things casually to the side. So here we have our rulebook, as is standard, almost Fantasy Flight style. It's a nice thick one, not quite as thick as Fantasy Flight, and hopefully better laid out than that. One would imagine it has been. One thing I'm not responsible for in this game is the rules. They were already laid down before I got involved, so I'm familiar with what needs to be done in this game, but I will be interested to play the completed version. Of course, again, given lockdown constraints right now. Please don't, I say this every single time I run one of these live streams. I love that you want to donate money. Of course I do, you know. I love getting donations on here, but I've no idea where they go. They don't seem to reach me. If you really want to send money to me, go on MatthewDawkins.com. There is a tip box on there, buy me a cup of tea, or back my Patreon, patreon.com/MatthewDawkins. It's all on MatthewDawkins.com. And I gratefully receive any such donations, of course, but donating via YouTube often results in that money disappearing into a vortex. What other comments do we have? Is there a book of famous vampires, werewolves, or other supernatural creatures through the ages, or are they buried in lore? Children of the Night, it does it quite well for Vampire the Masquerade Revised. Children of the Blood, which is coming up for V5, also has that kind of thing. Some darn guy is crazy excited to watch this. Thank you very much. Battle Bunny says, if a country has a curfew time due to lockdown and a vampire can't enter a house unless invited, are vampires the real victims of this corona situation? I think most ethical communities would struggle with that question, mainly because vampires are never really the victims, are they? Jose Ortiz Garcia says, haven't started the Heritage campaign yet. When would you recommend the Gentleman's Story expansion and the others to be used? In the rulebook, they included all the backers' names. Well, that's a good sign. I would recommend the Gentleman's Story be used in your second playthrough because it's a little different. Where are the Volgear in V5? I don't think they've ever been in Vampire the Masquerade outside of the live action game, so they're probably not going to appear in V5. They've never been in any of the tabletop RPG. Are we ever going to get more Changing the Lost books? Yeah, there's more Changing the Lost books being made all the time. Second edition has been a big success, and we've released at least a couple of books for that edition now. And what else do we have here? So I will carry on with the unboxing soon. Really enjoyed your work on Modern Age. Any other recommendations for modern systems? Thank you very much for calling out Modern Age. I really enjoyed working on that. I've worked on 3 books for Modern Age. And recommendations for modern systems, the Trinity Continuum Core is a great book. It's not behind me as it was before because there was a sonic boom over my house recently. Really, I think there was a jet that just went poof. I live near quite a lot of military maneuvering locations and the like, and the sonic boom actually made books fall off my shelves, including the Trinity Continuum, which tried to kill me. So that's now the second thing that has tried to kill me from above. That and a branch when I recorded the Gentleman's Guide to Vampires in that graveyard. But yeah, Trinity Continuum Core is a really good modern system. And yeah, so let's see, what do we have here? Yes, I see we do have our big list of backers in this book, but I'm not a backer, damn it, I'm a creator. I don't need to be lumped in with all of you schlubs. You lovely, lovely people who have bought copies of this game that have resulted in me getting paid, and I appreciate it. Thank you. So we have our Chronicle book here. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm recognizing a lot of the locations from here because, of course, I wrote up a lot of this. So that's good. Wonderful. Okay, yeah, lots of information here, which includes various historical events of importance, such as 1453, Constantinople falls to the Ottomans. We have 1493, 7 clans announced the formation of the Camarilla. We also have, in 1528, the Camarilla grudgingly cede Venice to the clan Giovanni, and so on. Yeah, okay, and this all plays into the game, I should note. Oh, we have some wallets for sealed information, envelopes that should not be opened until course of play. This really is a beautiful game. I'm so happy to have worked on it. We have these which you can, of course, put down in front of you to say, this is who I'm playing. This is a Katarina the Wise, unless I'm very much mistaken. But they also make for lovely little pieces of art that you can hang on your wall, should you wish. I have no wall space because my walls are covered in books. Let's see, what else do we have here? I wonder if any of them aren't recognizable by me at this point. This is Zelios from Transylvania by Night and the Transylvania Chronicles. Oh, I'm not sure about this one. Interesting. Let's see, what else do we have? Any advice or quick tips for creative writing, creating your own tabletop game? Well, Night Lord, I don't have any quick advice because that is quite a lengthy process. But if you back my Patreon, patreon.com/Matthew Dawkins, I run classes and I help people with writing. People who have backed at that level before have all spoken very highly of it. So do give it a thought. Let's see, is that a clan or Kia Seed clan pin? Not really a clan, they're a bloodline, but it is. Thanks for the Nosferatu Black Market. Looking forward to delving into it. My pleasure. Habble Babble Labble. Have I ever played Legend of the Five Rings? I have. They're right here. It's a very good game. I don't get to play it enough. Gentleman's Guide to Vampires is very entertaining. Thank you for doing it. Would you be willing to do more walkthroughs of games like that? Asks Rebecca Locke. I would. All it requires is someone to pay for my time. That may sound mercenary, but I spend most of my time now writing and developing tabletop role-playing games. So that means the chance to get in front of a camera and talk about those games is fleeting unless I'm getting paid for it. It doesn't mean a company has to pay for it, mind you. If you want particular videos, you can go on my Patreon and you can basically back to get that video completed. I've got a video on the Inconnu coming up from Vampire the Masquerade for just that reason. It should be out next week. Let's see. Habble Babble Labble says, how am I a dice goblin as well as a, well, I guess librarian or archivist? Up until recently, no. I've been using the same dice since I first got into tabletop gaming. However, a lot of the games I recently backed on Kickstarter came with dice. So now my desk has, I've got some Art Deco dice, some Deco dice there from Dirty Vortex. That's a nice company. I've got some Slay Industries dice from Slay Industries 2nd edition. I've got some Charlemagne, or Charlemagne, if you like, dice that came with that RPG. So yeah, I've suddenly become a dice goblin without any intent. Will we get more on the Jocastians in V5? Not immediately, I imagine, but that doesn't mean they won't appear. Hello, sir, to the True Salubri. Are there any Call of Cthulhu supplements you'd want to write? I have written a Call of Cthulhu supplement. I'm very, very pleased with it, and hopefully you should see it at the end of 2021. I wrote it all by myself, 120,000 words. It was a lot of work. And in one respect, lockdown was very useful for that. It gave me a lot of time to work on it. So, yeah. Okay, we've got all of our art here. We also have some lovely character sheets. What else have we got here? Are there any solo RPG systems you think would work well in World of Darkness? Well, I think the World of Darkness Storyteller system does actually support solo RPGs pretty well. There's nothing intrinsic in the system that requires you to play as part of a group. Will you sing your character in the meta of Vampire the Masquerade? Yeah, in the sense that the character I played in the V5 intro videos, Roger de Camden, has appeared in a couple of books by now, and will appear in Trails of Ash and Bone as well for V5. I'm not writing a V5 novel. I don't know that I have the discipline to write a novel. I've never really tried. I've always got too much work on to really commit to doing some multi-100-page book of just fiction. Plus, I'm not sure that's how my mind works. So what else have we got here? We've got lots of stickers because this is a legacy game. You place stickers on sheets and events as you complete them, so the next time you go and visit them, something different happens. We've got these to represent things like blood and influence, some lovely little gems and jewels. Oh, and I recognize this fellow here. Look at this handsome chap. A face only a sire could love. The Gentleman's Story. There we go. This is this is one of the parts of the game that I wrote, but in particular, this is a part that, as I mentioned, I get royalties from the sale of this, in particular, because it's all mine. So if people are interested in purchasing it, it helps me out. It really does. And you will find my typical scorn, the sort of scorn I lay out for neonates when I'm teaching them about the world of darkness. We've also got some other expansions in this book, such as Strands of Time and Twisted Fates, right here. Some lovely ankhs to act as counters. This is really a full box. You know, we're only just scratching the surface, but part of the reason for that is because I love to talk. I just love the sound of my own voice. And now we have the various boxes for the different clans you might play. I think every clan is represented in Heritage, except perhaps, well, the less important ones, let's be honest. I don't think we have the Ravnos in here, if memory serves, and the Salubri don't appear as playable, but of course they don't. Salubri are just a myth, a bogeyman. So yeah, as we dig deeper into the box, we're going to get into our sort of yearly tracks and so on, our counters that we will need to pop out at some juncture. One thing that I think is really just stands obviously to me, oh, what a lovely sort of tabernacle here, is the production value of Vampire the Masquerade Heritage is beautiful. And I really want to open this because I will recognize the writing from it, given that I wrote it. But part of me doesn't want to, in case you decide to pick up Vampire the Masquerade Heritage. I don't want to spoil anything for you, do I? I wouldn't be spoiling it for myself, but I would be spoiling it for you. So is this really what people want? Do people want to see me open up the game entirely? I'm tempted. So as I'm opening it, or struggling to, because I've misplaced my knife, stuck in my leg right now. What other questions do we have? What are some major Ascension supplements you'd like to see written? I'm very excited, Gal, seeing Victorian Age Mage, or Victorian Mage, which is going to be on Kickstarter in a month. Right now, our Kickstarter, or on Indiegogo, I think, is the plan. But right now, our Kickstarter is Scion Dragon and Scion Masks of the Mythos, which I'm very excited by. But Victorian Mage, I think Mage the Ascension just works so well thematically in that Victorian era, the 19th century through to very early 20th century. And that book is so well written. I cannot wait for you to see it. Law says, would writing for a World of Darkness television series be something you'd like to do? Yes, yeah, absolutely. You know, if someone wanted to hire me to work on something like that, I'm sure I would give it a go. I've never written for TV before, so who knows if I've got the skill set for it, but I'd be willing to give it a stab. Jorge says, are there any plans to give New York by Night a revisit, considering all the new writing content with the Coteries games? I honestly don't know. Books like that have been pitched by companies, I'm aware, but I don't know that Paradox necessarily want to see them. And this is often the case when it comes to licensors, licensees. Licensees will pitch various books they would love to work on. Paradox will make the call as to whether that book can be made or whether they want that book to be made. In some cases, as in a setting like New York, I could see the benefits because, as you say, Coteries in New York, Shadows in New York already has lots of that content laid out. But if there's other products coming out also set in New York and you release a book, it could come into conflict with that product. So that is sometimes an issue. Do we know when Deviant will be released? We don't give release dates, but I believe errata is being incorporated into it at this point, unless I'm very much mistaken. The Dark Scarlet says, when is your character guest appearing in active online games? I don't think I'm booked to appear in any active online games unless someone pays for me to. So Matthew Dawkins is canonically a kindred. Yes, I am. So I just started designing an RTS game using World of Darkness factions. Do you think it would be something fans would enjoy? Says True Salubri. As long as you're not making any money from it, then yeah, sure. If you are planning on making money from it, I suggest running it by Paradox Legal first. Who is your favorite clan? Asks Night Lord. That changes every single time I'm asked. So today I'm going to go for Nosferatu. What else do we have here? I've really loved your work so far. Tempting to pick this up, says Joshua. Thank you very much. I'm very fond of my work on this game. And yeah, okay, so I'm now opening this up. And so wonderful to see my work on these cards. I can't read them all out to you, but we did manage to get Marie Curie in the game. And if you particularly want, you can embrace her. What we managed to do, as well as putting a whole bunch of characters who are both mortal and vampire equivalent, is you've got sort of archetypes who you can embrace, and you've sometimes got famous people who either plots revolve around, or you can turn into vampires and end up with very famous children. Of course, that's a Masquerade breach, so do be careful if planning on doing that. And there's Jane Austen. So yeah, lots of interesting characters appear. Not all of this is my work. I shouldn't take credit for the whole thing, and I don't. I wrote a fair amount for it, but in a way, something that's interesting to me in playing a game like this is seeing how much of my content survived contact with release. It's often the way when you write content for games, especially board games and video games, that when it comes to release, things need to be downsized, cut back, made streamlined, use whatever terminology you like. And that means the work you did doesn't necessarily see the light of day. But that's fine. You know, I don't have much of an ego when it comes to my work surviving, and without trying to sound too mercenary, as long as I'm paid, I'm not going to as long as I'm paid in lovely clan coins, I'm not going to take it personally if my work isn't in the finished version. The only sad thing that I find when work doesn't get included is because it's protected under NDA, you will often never see it. And that's unfortunate. I worked on a vampire video game several years ago, about, I guess, 4 years ago now, that was cancelled. And the amount of work that had gone into it was... And this was a licensed game. I can't give you any information about it, but I can say that we got to a certain stage in development. Everything was looking good. It all read well. The material we wrote for it I was really happy with it, but eventually project was cancelled, and that means with the video game company it remains sealed up and will remain that way unless someone decides to revive that project, and often projects don't get revived, and I'm at peace with that. But it's still sometimes sad when you've done a lot of work on something and you know no one will ever read it. So what else have we got here? I've never heard of legacy games before. Being ignorant of heritage, does it play more like an RPG module or a straight board game? Asked Sylvia. In fact, it plays as both in a way, because you play various characters throughout this, and you will play through various historical events. Then you kind of start the cycle round again, and it means that when you revisit locations and events you've been to before, the things you did to them last time will still have an effect, if that makes sense. Keegan, were you gifted a copy of Earthblood given your Pentex voiceovers? I was not. Those bastards. Cyanide Studios. No, I'm not being gifted a copy of Werewolf of the Apocalypse Earthblood. And that's fine, because I mostly play on the Nintendo Switch these days, and it isn't out on the Switch. I do have a PS4, and I've got a fairly decent PC. I just don't often game on the PC. My most played game on the PC is probably Hearts of Iron 4. I enjoy torturing myself by playing Yugoslavia, but I play them pretty well. What else do we have? Remember, no matter your skill level with TV writing, it can't end up worse than Kindred the Embraced. There's some positives to Kindred the Embraced. Is there any updates in your writing involvement with Swan Song, asks Jorge. Yeah, I'm still contracted, so that means I'm still writing for it. Simple as that. Good day to you as well, Kavur Kagambo. Cephalopod, any interest in Vampire the Masquerade Crusader Kings 3 mod? I've not played it. It's called Princes of Darkness, isn't it? I haven't played it yet, but some of the people who made it are people who I have worked with, and I understand it is very good. Yeah, it's odd. I avoid a lot of vampire media unless I'm working on it myself, and the reason is, well, I mean Vampire the Masquerade media. And the reason is I don't like my creative vision, if I can sound a bit pretentious for a moment, and I often do, to be muddied or affected by someone else's. And it isn't that their ideas aren't good, but there's always the possibility of inadvertently stealing someone else's idea, frankly, or being influenced by it. And some people will see that as a great compliment. Some people will quite rightly say, you're plagiarizing my idea. It's why I don't really read much that's on the Storyteller's Vault, where people create their fan content for Vampire the Masquerade. Some of it is excellent. I am reliably informed. But if I wrote it, or rather, if I read it, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years later, I might start incorporating some of those ideas without even remembering where I got the idea from. So it's always a bit tricky. But that doesn't mean if you write for Storyteller's Vault that is going to play against you. We hire a hell of a lot of people now on Onyx Path who have contributed to our community content programs, most specifically things like the Slurician Vault for Scarred Lands, the Story Path Nexus for Scion, Trinity, they came from Beneath the Sea. If you write community content, then it shows a commitment and an interest in the game and acts as a fantastic trial run that will then tell us by things like reviews and sales, okay, this person knows what they're doing, so let's give them a shot working on an official piece. Hello to Moscow. What else do we have here? I miss a lot of the wackier stuff you could do with thaumaturgy and V20, like being able to talk to chairs, says Morrigan White. I don't. Let's see. There is a CK2 Vampire Masquerade mod as well, says Youngster. Yes, I believe they're made by the same person. Have you seen the trailer for Total War Warhammer 3? No, I haven't, and I'm not really interested in it. I've never been into Warhammer. It's just not my thing. Want someone to make a mod for VTM on Pillars of Eternity. Pillars of Eternity and Pillars of Eternity 2 are fantastic games in their own right. I've ever played or ran an RPG using the Genesis system by Fantasy Flight Games. I was wondering if you were going to refer to the Sega Genesis, or Sega Mega Drive as it is in the UK then. I've not, but I understand now you can correct me if I'm wrong. I thought Genesis was like a percentile system, and I enjoy most percentile systems. I could be wrong, but I believe it's percentile, and I find they do what they do very well, but I also don't find them terribly inspiring. I find them very easy. I could be wrong there. Is there any timeline for Werewolf the Apocalypse 5th Edition Kickstarter, asks Edwin. I don't know if there is going to be a Kickstarter for Werewolf the Apocalypse 5th Edition. It's being created by Paradox Interactive in-house, and they will release it how they choose to release it. Keep in mind, Vampire the Masquerade 5th Edition did not have a Kickstarter, so I don't know that Werewolf the Apocalypse would either. Genesis is not a percentile system, says Indigo Dragon. Well, I have not checked it out, so I was just rambling. How are things going? How's the Heritage box looking? Well, the Heritage box is looking still mostly full, X-Mally 28, but it is looking very nice. There's a lot of lovely content in here that I'm going to be very excited to play with, and some of it I'm, of course, very nervous about opening up on camera because I don't want to ruin the game for anybody. It's a legacy game. There's lots of secrets about. Yeah, these are all the characters. These are all the characters I wrote up. People like the Duchess and the Chancellor and the General. Such brilliant artwork in this game. I am so happy with how it has turned out. Ooh, what else do we have? Let's open up the Tremere box and see what's inside. That's always a dangerous prospect, isn't it? And it's a sealed wallet of Tremere. Every single thing I'm opening up now, I'm doing ahead of the point at which I should. But let's see how many of you Vampire the Masquerade purists recognize some of these vampires. So here we go. It's sealed up nice and tight, as a Tremere chantry should be. That didn't help. Ooh, okay, I'm getting there. With my big pianist's fingers. You heard right. So, remember Mistress Fanchon? Do you remember Mistress Fanchon? She appears in the Giovanni Chronicles, unless, yeah, in fact, I guarantee she appears in the Giovanni Chronicles. And on the back, we have Karl Schrecht. When we were designing V5, we were wondering who should be the iconic Tremere for this edition. Should we keep it with Aisling Sturbridge, or should we go for someone different? And in the end, we've got two, of course, with Karna being the representative for House Karna and Karl Schrecht being the representative for House Tremere. I don't know if that still holds, you know, if they are still considered iconic, or if that is yet to be determined by whatever media most of these people appear in. Oh, and we've got lots of clan-specific advantage cards. I'm not going to open all of these because it would be ruining the surprise. So pick a clan, any clan. First person to name a clan in the chat gets that box open just so we can see which character ended up in there. I'm pretty certain I remember which characters ended up in each box because, again, I wrote them. So what else do we have here? Genesis uses the same system as in Star Wars Edge of the Empire. Yes, I remember that system, and I wasn't a massive fan on it. I remember it being a bit gimmicky in terms of dice. Thank you, Alan, for enjoying Cults of the Blood Gods. I'm really pleased that so many people enjoy it, and so many people have reappraised the Hecata, the Clan of Death, as a result. So Jorge says Giovanni. Cults of the Blood Gods is fantastic. Schrecht was a good choice. Okay, so Giovanni was named ahead of anything else, but the Hecata are not a playable clan. The La Sombra was named next, so we will go with the La Sombra. Well done, everybody, for just throwing a whole bunch of names out there into the void. I imagine you'll be able to guess who the iconic characters for Clan La Sombra are. If you know the history of Vampire the Masquerade, you'll know one of them. If you know of my writing preferences and some of my content for things like Chicago by Night and Beckett's Jihad Diary, you will know the other one. So here is the point at which you can guess. So one of them has been iconic for many years. One of them is one of my favorite characters to write and appears quite heavily in Beckett's Jihad Diary and Chicago by Night. So Lucita, of course, is one of them. And you all guessed that. Lucita de Aragon. Can you recall who the other one is? So I'm looking to you, fans of Beckett's Jihad Diary and Chicago by Night. Do you know who the other iconic La Sombra is and the other playable one in this book? In this game? Tick-tock, tick-tock. Tally! Well done, Jorge. There is Tally. Tally with, and I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, with his Black Spiral Dancer tattoo. You're not going to be able to see it at all well. I don't think it's going to want to zoom in on it. On his bald head. That's right. Tally, old boy. That's right. That's how he sounds. There we go. And a whole bunch of action cards that the Sombra only can take. Roger de Camden does indeed make an appearance, James. I have got his own storybox in here somewhere. I showed it off at one point. Very tempted to show it off again because, of course, it's got my face on it. And who doesn't want to see more of my face? There you go. There's the gentleman's story, represented by Lord Roger de Camden. And yeah, it's an interesting thing having my face as part of a board game. My face has been in tabletop role-playing games as well. I'm a Pentex director. I'm in Anarchs Unbound. I probably appear elsewhere as well. But yeah, it's lovely to see. Lovely to just appear. Artist made you look very handsome. Thanks. Yeah, I don't take that at all seriously. I'm not going to open up the gentleman's story because I know what's in it, and also it's too fucking difficult to open. So this game is available for purchase. Indigo Dragon, I believe. I have linked it below. I have also linked. You want a Malkavian, Methuselah, Jacob and Esau. I will do the Malkavians last. There's lots of other clans in here, but we can't do all of them, can we? Got to have some surprises. Jacob and Esau don't appear as playable in this. So once again, I look to you, the Vampire the Masquerade purists, to see if you can name who the iconic Malkavians would be. Obviously, one of them has been iconic for many, many years, as ever. But another one may not be. Maybe someone a little more obscure. So, answers. Fingers on buzzers, please. Tick tock, tick tock. Bear in mind, this is someone who you've got to be able to play throughout history. The Heritage games goes all the way from the 14th century to the 20th century. Yeah, that's all right. I was playing a Malkavian prince all those years ago on Vampire the Masquerade YouTube experiment. Very long time ago, yes. Therese and Jeanette are not the iconic characters, Law, because they would not be playable in a historic era. But who was the iconic Malkavian in previous editions of Vampire the Masquerade? Even has an entire clan novel focused around his perspective. 2 clan novels, in fact, focused around his perspective. Oh, well, no one seems to be answering. There we go, Jorge. You've got Anatole, if you like. Some people say Anatole. That isn't incorrect. But I believe it is Anatole. Anatole. And who would be the reverse? I don't think anyone is going to be able to guess this. But you never know. You never know. And it's, again, an interesting choice. I'm going to give you 20 seconds to answer. Obviously, if you've already got the game, you may already know this. Okay. No one is guessing. There we go. Jorge already knows because he's already got a copy of the game. He's cheating while he's looking up online. Jorge Ortiz Garcia says that it's Last Supper one's Lady Theophana. And it is indeed Lady Theophana with the dying flowers in her hair, as per the Giovanni Chronicles. So, yeah, I will leave the rest for you to discover in your own time and your own copies, because I'm sure you will all be picking a copy up. As I said, I posted a link to this game in the video description, but I also posted a link to the Scion Dragon, Scion Masks of the Mythos Kickstarters, which I will be hugely appreciated if you back. I know they aren't Vampire the Masquerade games, but if you love Call of Cthulhu and you love the most popular fantasy monster next to the orc, the dragon, then please do check out that Kickstarter too, because I'm really pleased with what the teams put together on those books, and I also love Call of Cthulhu. And of course, if you do back that Kickstarter, do leave a comment to say Matthew Dawkins, or I came here because of Matthew Dawkins' video, because it always helps me. I don't get credit for it, I don't get paid for it, but it helps me to determine whether that has any kind of influence at all. Anyway. So, unboxing is pretty much done. I'm not going to open up the rest of it. You can see what goes on. The game is one where you play across a course of centuries from the 14th to the 20th. You go through various famous, infamous, and discrete historical events with your vampires growing in power, embracing childhood, and generally extending your influence, making a continuous lineage, hence the name heritage, of descendants that can stretch all the way through to the modern knights. And I think it's a lot of fun. I very much enjoyed working on this game, so I think you will very much enjoy playing it. Of course, I would say that, but do check it out. And if you do decide to pick up a copy, and it is still possible to buy a copy of the Gentleman's Story to go with it, which was at the time a Kickstarter only expansion, if you can pick up a copy, please do, because as I mentioned before, I am entitled to royalties on sales of this one. Not on the entire board game, but on the Gentleman's Story. I know there will be vindictive members of this audience now who decide they're going to buy it and specifically leave this one out while getting the other two expansions. If you decide to do that, then that's fine. You do that, then, you know, God be with you, but also up yours. Wow, what else do we have here then? So we've got other comments. Just got in from class, like the cars though, says Logan. Well, welcome from class. Alan says, looking forward to getting a copy if it ever makes its way to Norfolk, says Alan Palmer. I used to live in Norwich, Alan. Back then, we had a few gaming stores in Norwich. There was... one of them, I think, is still there on that very cobblestone hill where all the historical dramas get filmed, and the name of that one escapes me. We also had a shop called Lingard's, which was excellent, but is now shut. And back when there was Ottakers, before it turned into Waterstones, that used to sell a lot of tabletop RPGs as well. I don't think they sold particularly well. It's just someone that worked there loved tabletop RPGs, so kept ordering them in. So what else do we have? What's a vampire without a gentleman? Exactly. What is vampire without a gentleman? If you want me working on future tabletop RPG products, of course, you need to tell the companies that I want more books by Matthew Dawkins, damn it. Because, you know, I can only work on so many, and word of mouth is good for people like me. So if you're a fan of what I do spread the word. Do back my Patreon, because extra money always helps. This isn't the most lucrative career in the world, but God damn it, I'll make it work. And also, of course, my website, MatthewDawkins.com, is open for tips if you particularly want to give me just the tip or even a little bit more. I am free and available on there. Elm Hill, there we go. That's it. Duncan runs that shop. You're quite right, Alan. I'm glad I remember, or vaguely. So the games room, yes. What games do you play on Switch, asks Morgan. Okay, so now we're talking random stuff. So I'm going to get myself a drink, and I'll do the usual Q&A that concludes these videos. Finally, a time to breathe while drinking. It's quite a talent. So what games do I play on Switch? My favorite game on Switch is probably Hollow Knight, although I'm a big fan of Cuphead as well. I do love Metroidvanias. I'm also, not ashamed to say it, huge fan of Mario Odyssey. I don't think there is a better game in terms of playability and level design out there. And I very much thumb my nose at people who say Mario is a game for kids. While it, of course, has its childish elements, it is just so fantastically well designed. Mario Odyssey is up there for me. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Hyrule Warriors, to a lesser extent, they're good fun. What else? What else have I been playing a lot of lately? I play a lot of the Nintendo Entertainment System online on there, and the Super Nintendo on there as well. Although I also have both those consoles, so my need to do so is quite limited. I guess it's just a case of not wanting to unpack them. Yeah. I would put Hollow Knight as my favorite Switch game, and one of my favorite games in general. In fact, on my second monitor, which you can't see, there is currently a lot of shadows from Hollow Knight just ascending from the abyss. What else do we have? What other questions? What is the drink? That would be some kind of blackcurrant squash cordial-like thing. Are there any playable bloodlines in Heritage? Nope, just the clans, no bloodlines in this game. There's only so much room for playable options in here. You said you don't consume other Vampire the Masquerade media, which is interesting to me, but I understand keeping the vision pure. But where else do you draw inspiration, consciously or unconsciously, asks Mal why. In terms of vampire media, mostly it's What We Do in the Shadows, which is a fantastic movie and TV series. I know it's comedy, but it is still brilliant. In terms of other media outside of vampire, I'm a big fan of dystopian novels, video games, movies. I generally pull influence out from different locations that aren't vampire related, because if it's been explored in vampire media already, then there's no point exploring it again. One thing I'm very fond of that concluded a couple of years ago is the TV series, for instance, The Leftovers. The Leftovers, which I've mentioned on the Onyx Pathcast before, is a fantastic series all about how you handle grief, the trauma, psychological impacts of a massive, global world-shaking event. And that's what occurs in it. 2% of the globe's population just disappears in an instant, one day. And the series is set, the first season anyway, is set 3 years after that. It never really lingers on what exactly happened to these people. It focuses on how do people cope in a world where this kind of thing can happen. And so you see all kinds of cults forming. You see a lot of very desperate people doing some very unusual things, because, what can you believe in anymore if science doesn't have an explanation? And if faith doesn't give you all the answers, it can lead to a lot of desperation. Now, The Leftovers, I think, is the perfect TV series in my mind. It is wonderful, and an awful lot of it fed into what I did with Cults of the Blood Gods as a developer. Not so much vampire media, just seeing if your life gets irrevocably changed, such as by being changed into a vampire, how are you going to adjust? What are you going to try and cling on to? What are you going to start believing in? Are you going to dedicate your existence to some other principle than just surviving night to night? And if so, how far-fetched is it really going to seem? Because when these kinds of things can happen, when humans can be turned undead, all of a sudden, a lot of other crackpot conspiracy ideas seem realistic. But I very much recommend The Leftovers. It's a brilliant series. You can embrace Duskborn in Heritage, says Jorge. Thank you very much. Do I still keep in contact with Captain Machine, says Trayton Scott. I've not been in touch with Captain Machine for a very long time. Not since I stopped doing videos regularly. I don't know if he still does videos. Captain Machine's videos were the very first YouTube RPG videos I ever watched before I started recording. And this was before Spoonie did anything like Counter Monkey, or before the YouTube RPG Brigade, such as it was, established. I found Captain Machine reviewing Slay Industries, and the only reason I found that was because I was looking for a review of Slay Industries and it happened to be on YouTube, and I thought, oh, okay, well, he's doing this, I could start doing reviews as well. And so, yeah, Captain Machine was the very first YouTuber talking about RPGs that I ever encountered. Do I use Discord to play Vampire the Masquerade, asks Youngster. I do. My Patreons currently are playing in 5 different games. I've got 5 different groups, in fact. I've got a V5 game going over voice. They're all voice over Discord. Vampire the Masquerade 5th Edition, V20 Dark Ages, Call of Cthulhu, Cthulhu by Gaslight, and Broken Rooms. Those are the 5 games I'm currently running for 5 different groups on Discord, my Discord. You can't access that Discord, however, unless you are a Patreon of patreon.com/Matthew Dawkins. What weapon from any World of Darkness setting you want to see created in real life? Been pitching the Grand Clave to some blacksmith YouTubers. I'm not really interested in real life weapons. And to be honest, there aren't many weapons that are invented in World of Darkness. It's never really been a game about magical weapons or artifacts, even mage. So not really my forte. And yeah, Jorge, that score is haunting. I own the LP, the soundtrack to The Leftovers. Is it cruel to leave a Sombra in a hall of mirrors, asks Morrigan White. No, actually, it's advantageous because the Sombra can definitely see if someone's sneaking up behind them. unless they're also a La Sombra. XMally28 says, since questions are more random, what was that renegade symbol depicting? The Ravnos cross, circle on the bottom, but its 3 upper edges being crescent moons. I believe that was in the chapters release, wasn't it? So that symbol was, before I vetoed it, the old symbol for clan. And this was before came out, and I said, I don't think this represents this clan at all in any way. But basically, I wasn't that critical. I said, I don't see it, and I would like to see something that looks more like this. And so Paradox put together an alternative, and ultimately the alternative won. So that piece of art just slipped through. As no one really knows how, but it did. Hello, family. Random question. I can't see the pin very well. What is it? It's Kia Seed. Have you seen 30 Monidas? I have not. Andu says, I remember the days when you could buy clay from White Wolf, 3.5 grand of sterling silver, if memory serves. Yeah, clays were expensive. Feral Gangrel, what's your experience with World of Darkness players being unable to get outside of a D&D mindset of, if I can't kill something, I don't know what to do, or their entire character is equally shallow? I find that's the same in any tabletop RPG you play, to be honest, unless it's something incredibly nuanced and, I guess, avant-garde. There's always going to be the mentality of, I have to kill it to get past it. You see it in D&D, you see it in Vampire, you see it in Call of Cthulhu. But there's likewise, if someone has grown up playing nothing but Vampire and then they go over to D&D, they may try and solve every conflict with mental domination or social maneuvering or something like that. So I think we all hold on to habits from various games. For instance, when I run games of D&D or Pathfinder, I very rarely have combat that always has to be to the death. I find that a nonsense idea, even if you're going up against a village of trolls. Do they live in villages? They're not going to fight to the death. Some will try to flee, some might surrender, some might try and give up their companions, that kind of thing, because I think it makes life more interesting. What got me into Vampire the Masquerade, asks Logan, recommended by my cousin, and the cover art for Clan Book Ravnos in particular. Brian Autry, don't know if you can say anything either way, but since Paradox decided to take development for the core World of Darkness games in-house and Hunters is no longer involved, but are you still involved or freelance? I still work for Onyx Path Publishing freelance. I still work for a lot of game companies freelance. I'm not working on Werewolf the Apocalypse 5th edition anymore, however, because I was working on that game for Hunters Entertainment, and Paradox Entertainment, or Paradox Interactive now, took that game in-house, which meant basically our contracts came to an end. I don't think any of my material for Werewolf 5th edition is going to end up in Werewolf 5th edition. I don't mind. That's the company's decision. I think a lot of us did very good work. I think all of us did very good work, but it wasn't necessarily what Paradox wanted to do at that point, and that is their prerogative as licensor. But yeah, I still do plenty of freelance work on World of Darkness products. I've got nothing else lined up for V5 right now after Trails of Ash and Bone, Children of the Blood, and Forbidden Religions comes out, but that is still 3 books. And to be honest, as much as I would love to get offered more work, I love being offered work, especially on World of Darkness properties, because I know them so well. I write them very comfortably and quickly. I'm also not going to turn down the opportunity to work on other games. Right now, I'm working quite extensively on the translation for Gods, a French language role-playing game that's being published by Arcane Asylum. And yeah, that is a brilliant fantasy game, really interesting, and the Kickstarter for it was very successful too. The art for that game is magnificent, so yeah, that's great fun, and that's completely out of my normal wheelhouse. Ender says, how do I feel about the Hecata compared to the old Cappadocian Giovanni? Do I feel they fit the void left by the Clans of Death? I do, very much, and I would say that because I came up with the idea for the Hecata, I developed them into being, and I co-wrote what they ultimately became. So yeah, very happy with the Hecata. I think they're a vast improvement on the Giovanni and Cappadocians, who I also love. I think most people know that I'm a big fan of the Clans of Death, but I think the Hecata make them infinitely more playable and interesting for the vast majority of Chronicles. Let's see. What was the first RPG you played? Asks Alan Palmer. First RPG I ever played was Hercules and Xena, The Legendary Journeys, and the reason was because I turned up to the role-playing club on the wrong week. I thought I was turning up for D&D. I turned up for Hercules and Xena instead, and the next week I played Dungeons and Dragons. So yeah, that was my first ever tabletop role-playing game with character sheets, dice, and so on. The first role-playing experience I ever had was probably Fighting Fantasy. Something like Scorpion Swamp or Caverns of the Snow Witch, Warlock of Firetop Mountain, something like that. In fact, no, the very first Fighting Fantasy book I had was Demons of the Deep. I bought it from W.H. Smith when I was about 8 years old. Well, my mother did. She bought it for me, and the sales assistant said, I think he's too young for that, and my mum said, I think he can cope with it. And so she bought me Demons of the Deep, and yeah, I loved the idea of essentially choose your own adventure, but with fantasy and monsters. What else do we have? Paladin says, the series Man-at-Arms Reforged takes pop culture weapons and actually makes them like Overwatch, Warhammer 40k, and anime. Habble Babble Labble says, what's your favourite V20 discipline? How do I feel about the decline in player power from V20 to V5? My favourite V20 discipline is probably Auspex. How do I feel about the decline in player power? I very much enjoy it because it makes people think about the way they're playing. Plus, I have been playing Vampire the Masquerade and running it for so long, and I have yet to find any groups that regularly run disciplines of 6 dots or more. It's one of the most interesting criticisms V5 receives. I want disciplines of 6 dots and more. I want to have all these thaumaturgy paths back and so on, and yet no one ever played with them, or so few people played with them. So going for something more thematically strong, of having vampires weaker, more reliant on the low levels of their disciplines, means people play more creatively. Something I always do when I run Vampire the Masquerade, with player permission, of course, is I give every character 1 dot of a discipline. That's it. That's all they get at the very start of the game. And you will be amazed at what players, the imaginative ways people will use 1 dot of Dominate, or 1 dot of Auspex, or 1 dot of Presence. Suddenly, it's not just a stepping stone to get to 2 dots or 3 dots. The Nosferatu have always been particularly bad for that, because a lot of people play a Nosferatu, take 3 dots of Obfuscate, completely nix their clan weakness Bane, and renders the point of being a Nosferatu pointless. So I love the idea of having, 1 dot in Obfuscate or 1 dot in Animalism, and all of a sudden you've got to think about how you're going to play your character. Jason says, have I heard anything about other settings of World of Darkness getting an update, such as Demon and Break the Oblivion? If I had, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but right now the only book that I know of that's in development for, in terms of core books, is Werewolf the Apocalypse 5th edition. And there may be more. Brian says, it's unfortunate to hear about your work on W5. I was quite excited about yours and B. Dave Walters' involvement, but I'm sure it'll be great either way. I'm sure it will be. Justin Achille is the man behind the scenes on that book, and he has a tried and tested record with World of Darkness games. But yeah, B. Dave really worked well on Werewolf 5th edition from what I could see. I thought I was doing good work as well. I don't think it was down to quality of work that ended up getting taken in-house by Paradox, and I've had a chance to work with B. Dave on other games since then, so it's not like that relationship has ended. Angela says, good morning, sir. Once we are able to gather again, can we expect to see you at midwinter gaming conventions in Milwaukee once again? I would love to return to Milwaukee. I'm most likely to return there if the Onyx Path group has their summit there. Traveling to Milwaukee from the UK for leisure is less likely, because, quite frankly, Milwaukee is not a transport hub, which means that to get there, I have to transfer a place like Chicago or New York or Orlando, and that just greatly extends the stress and the time of a journey. So I know that sounds all very mundane and boring, but if I'm to travel to America for leisure, it will usually be to one of the big cities to make my transport easier, and because there's often a lot more for me to do in those cities because they're big cities. It's a bit harsh, but that's the plight of international travel, isn't it? Plus, COVID, don't particularly want to travel anywhere right now. Fallen Dimmy says, choose 2 bloodlines. The first will become an official clan. The second one will be removed permanently from the game. First one then is Kia Seed. Second one is True Bruja. Why did I choose them? Because I think the Kia Seed have wonderful potential, especially with their content and lore of the bloodlines. One of my favorite projects to have worked on in Vampire the Masquerade. Whereas the True Bruja, I don't mind them in principle. I like the idea of the Bruja having a secret history of having massacred their elders. But the idea of time-traveling vampires leaves me cold like a true brewer. Firefox says, good evening. I have read both Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition and Vampire the Requiem 2nd edition. Alongside researching forums that specifically talk about it, it's kind of agreed Requiem has the better system. Do I agree? I think both of them have merits, and of course I'm going to say that because I've worked on both games. I prefer running Requiem 2nd edition, and it may well be because I know the system better, although I know 5th edition pretty damn well at this point. I find there's a lot that's interchangeable. If I want a simpler time of it, I'll go for Requiem, because as much as I love things like Hunger, and I love Compulsions, and I love Bestial Failures, I love messy criticals and all that as thematic devices, I find that sometimes keeping track of all that stuff can lead to play getting bogged down, especially if you're with a new storyteller. Whereas Requiem is simpler, and of course the old V20 and prior systems are simpler still. So really it depends on what kind of game you're going for. If you've got a group that is dedicated to the true Vampire the Masquerade experience of punishing knights of existence, then V5 is for you. This is the Heritage stream, Jonas, but we've finished the unboxing and now I'm just talking. What else do we have here? Would you say that diablerie is common with players, says Nathaniel? More in LARPs than tabletop, because in LARPs everyone wants to kill the prince and it completely derails any personal plots. That may well sound like it's diminishing a lot of people's excellent in-character development in LARPs, but my experience is the prince is someone you want to kill, and a lot falls by the wayside during that fight for hierarchy. Cicely said, but one thing I really dislike in LARPs is the Auspex police. The idea that Clan Toreador will be designated as the Auspex clan, and whenever someone arrives in court, they will scan them to see whether they've committed diablerie, really pisses me off, because you have completely diminished the supernatural and interesting nature of Auspex if you've just got someone going diddly diddly diddly, scanning everyone in the court. It basically means it's much like, doing that because you know someone's going to turn up with obfuscate. All of a sudden you're playing in the playground and someone says, you can't shoot me because I'm invisible, and someone else says, I can see you because I've got anti-invisibility glasses on. It gets very meh. I don't like that at all. Not at all. So what else do we have here? You've got your copy, says Trapped in America, but no one to play with because of COVID. Yeah, I feel that pain. I still run lots of games, but I do them all online. Ellie, who struggles to like V5? I'm sad to hear that. So the Gentleman Gamer says, Cicely, have you ever come across a character or made one that you thought wouldn't work and the player or character ended up proving you wrong? Absolutely. There's a character coming up in V5 Children of the Blood called Landon Dankworth, whose nickname is Father Christian Patriot, who is a cultist. And I thought when I was writing him, is it pushing things too far? But he's an asshole and he works as an antagonist. Ariadne says everyone wants to kill the prince. Yep, that is very true. I know that from experience. Trapped in America says, I can't imagine playing without the blood dice. The blood dice, if used correctly, enhance the vampire roleplay. Absolutely. I think transferring Hunger into V20 or Requiem still works perfectly well. Yeah, if all you needed to definitely check for Diablerie is low-level war specs, the World of Darkness wouldn't work. Exactly. What's it like being in a video game trailer? Yes, this is in relation to the Endron ad. Yeah, I've been in 2 Endron ads, in fact. That's my voice in the first one and the third one for Werewolf the Apocalypse Earthblood. It was great fun, and I very much enjoyed getting paid for it. I'm about to start playing Vampire the Masquerade again after 15 years with some friends, this time as a storyteller. We'll be playing with my old revised manual. Any tips for getting into this after many years? Keep it low-key, keep it intimate, keep it focused on a single block with some interesting mortal characters so that your characters can feel above them, and then slowly drip feed in other vampires from the city. Don't worry about having to detail the entire court, the prince, and all his schemes and things like that. I find that is largely a masturbatory exercise for people, and not even in a negative way, for people who just want to write about interesting vampires. That's my doorbell, so I should just get that. I'll be back. Talk among yourselves. Haha! I return. Right. What was I talking about? Yeah, keep it low-key. It will make for a better game and a better experience for everyone. What other questions do we have before we terminate this recording? What's your favourite piece of lore? Probably the entire Cappadocian Giovanni backstory, Firefox. It's what made me fall in love with what made me fall in love with Vampire in a lot of ways. Jonas says, sorry if this was already asked, how did you like designing a storyline for Heritage? Loved it. I mean, I wrote a hell of a lot for this game, not just that. But yeah, really nice to have my face on a box and have my own story pack. But yeah, I wrote a lot for this game, and it was great fun. I love working on World of Darkness, whether it's on board games, card games, video games, tabletop role-playing games, of course. What else do we have here? How would we go about building a game system like Vampire made by a community? That isn't something I could really answer because there's already a system in place and I think it works perfectly well. If you're thinking of running a community-sized game, you're looking at an online LARP. We did that on my channel and others called the Vampire the Masquerade YouTube experiment. Nathaniel says, who is your favorite character in the lore at this time? My favorite character in lore at this time is probably Fiorenza Savona. I created her for V5 as the archetypal Ventru, the iconic Ventru. She's the older woman who is pictured in V5. I created all the iconics for V5. I created... You know what? I did create a lot for V5. And it's strange because sometimes I forget what I've added to the game. But when I think about it, I can see characters I've introduced who then appear in other books or appear in card games, board games, and so on. And that's always quite exciting, especially when they get depicted in art. Yeah. So, yeah, Fiorenza, I think, is who I would go for at this point. What else? Cicely says, thank you for the live streams. They're very nice. Well, thank you very much for watching. And yeah, detailing the Prince's Court is indeed mental masturbation. But it can be creatively inspiring. The problem is often if you spend like 3 weeks writing the infrastructure or hierarchy of a vampire city, you will never reach most of those characters. And if you do, you will have overwhelmed your players with characters. So just direct them at a few, and your game will become much livelier as a result. The chair loves working closely with Matthew Dawkins. It loves my arse. Mossad Lucian says, obfuscate. It was, yeah. So, none of my game group has anything but V5. I'm seeing if I can't make the Gehenna campaign book work in V5. Oh, I'm sure it will, some darn gay guy. Some darn gay. I didn't call you that, although I just did. Some darn guy. With predator types and compulsions, I struggle to really make the character I want to play. Predator types are optional. They are not feeding restrictions. I think people have read them like that, but nowhere does it say they are that. This is just your preference for feeding. So predator types are just a way to help people who don't know how to create a character or want assistance, but they are not straitjackets. So if you choose, let's say, Sandman, it doesn't mean you have to only feed from sleeping people. If you want that, you should be playing a Ventru. And yeah, you can use nature and demeanor instead, but it isn't there to restrict you. Compulsions very rarely come up in my experience. When are you going to live stream your games? I missed the online stream LARPs you hosted. I've run 5 of them on 6 games online, technically, with my home game as well. But I don't like to expose people who back my Patreons to the public because it's their private game to be enjoyed. That said, if you want to play games with me, come on patreon.com/Matthew Dawkins and join a game. I'm always happy to run more if people are prepared to pay for my time. What else do we have? I missed Dark Ages V20, rolled a Kia Seed Ravnos with Daimonian. That sounds disgusting. What aside from the expansion letters did I write, says Pimpulus. I wrote all of the characters in Vampire the Masquerade Heritage. I wrote a whole bunch of historical events and scenarios for Vampire the Masquerade Heritage. Something like 60 to 70 of them. I've got a big spreadsheet of them. Running online LARP is hard and takes a lot of time and work, as Ariadne says, quite. Who I'm most excited to hear from in terms of characters from V5, the ones you're most curious to learn where they are, what they're doing. I love it when someone else takes a character I've created and starts writing stuff about them. So yeah, I would love to see what Savona gets up to in the future. Or the Zimishi I introduced in the V5 called Mayumi Shibasaki. Jorge says, any World of Darkness copy you recommend for voiceover actors that are pursuing submitting something to Paradox and partners? No, if you're planning on getting into voiceover work, you are best off obviously having some kind of track record of creating such. One of the best ways you can do that is by going on a program like Audible and becoming a voice actor on there. There are books that are voice actors are requested for. So if you think you can do voice acting, which means speaking clearly, speaking concisely, and of course pronouncing everything correctly, then as long as you can do that, then you should be able to do voiceover work. It also helps to have a decent microphone. Have I ever played Night Road? I have not played Night Road. Just ordered the game. Looks great. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Diwunjo. Would I like to do gameplays? So would I like to do online games? I've already got far too many games I'm running, so worrying about doing a regular gaming stream where people watch me run games isn't really something that interests me right now. Do I believe in interviews and role-playing tests before accepting new players into a well-established group? Not role-playing tests. That sounds a bit strange, either, Leaf, but I'm certainly discussing with the player what the group is like and what they want out of the game to see whether they're a good fit. Makes sense to me. Firefox says, aside from Vampire, do I have particular interest in Chronicles of Darkness games like Changing the Lost? I do. I developed Mummy the Curse 2nd edition, so I should like Chronicles of Darkness. I've written on Vampire the Requiem. I developed a book for Werewolf the Forsaken 2nd edition. I've written on Promethean the Created. I co-developed Dark Eras 2. Yeah, so needless to say, I am a big fan of Chronicles of Darkness. Let's see. I wasn't a big fan of nature, in-character banter. How did you like my handiwork on the Missouri Dam? I actually came up with the fact that that was blown up, so the fact that you're claiming responsibility for that, well, I blame you. Favorite clan in L5R? I wish I had one. Honestly, crabs. Who doesn't love crabs? When is Children of the Blood coming out, says Ariadne Quinn. We don't give release dates, but I can't imagine it's going to be too far off because almost all the art is in for it. Is there anything you wish they would add to V5? I can't wait for the time, and I'm sure it will come, where I can write up the Kia seed for V5. Anyway, now with that all said, I've been running for well over an hour. This unboxing is complete and has overshot. We've spent very little time talking about the box of things, which is beautiful, but please do pick up Vampire the Masquerade Heritage, and you can find the link to it below. Please also back Scion Dragon and Scion Masks of the Mythos. They are also in the link. Well, they're also linked in the video description below. And I really think you would enjoy them. If you love World of Darkness or Chronicles of Darkness, you're going to love the Scion games as well. If you love Call of Cthulhu, you'll really like Masks of the Mythos. You need to check that Kickstarter out. So I'm telling you right now, all 76 of you watching this right now, go down, click on that Kickstarter link. You can carry on watching me while you do it. You don't even have to back it while I'm talking. But I'm asking you right now, please open that up, because the teams that made those games put so much work into them. The art will hopefully drag you in, kicking and screaming like a monster in Call of Cthulhu should. And Mask of the Mythos is wonderful. I just think it's a fantastic game. It's been a long time coming, where you can play the children of the great old ones. So do look at it. Kickstarter is kind of like a pre-order service, Mal. So have a look below. Anyway, I am going to finish my drink. I'm going to get some more work done, and literally just joined when it said click the Kickstarter link. Where is it? It says OMFGA Cat. Should be in the video description below. So yeah, Scion is a game where you play the descendants of gods. So in regular Scion, you may be the child of Loki, of Zeus, of Aphrodite, of Thor, of Tezcatlipoca, of Amaterasu, of any number of gods. They're all detailed in Scion. In Scion Dragon and Scion here and Scion Mask of the Mythos, Scion Dragon takes things in a more fantastical bent, in a really beautiful and stunning way. I'm really impressed with it. And Mask of the Mythos, of course, takes things in a more horrific bent with the Cthulhu mythos over there. So yeah, thank you very, very much, everyone, for watching. It's been a very long stream, but thank you so much, everyone, for sticking with me. Do click those links below. And until next time, there'll be an Inconnu video coming out next week. So look out for that. Bye-bye.